colleagues who are looking at these issues on gender. So we will be waiting to see how the discussions go, and then move on from that issue.
Thank you, Francis. And first, let me say how pleased I am to be with you, and how important it is to be back together, to be able to see each other. Francis has talked about one target, and perhaps I want to extend what he said and talk about the whole framework. We're trying to do a framework for all, and that is a framework for all gender. And what we want, and I want to pick a little bit on what Elizabeth has said, and then tell you a bit of a story. Here in Switzerland, 60% of the workforce for agriculture are women. So if you want to do change on agriculture, I don't see how you can do it without speaking to women, and how we need to adapt our message. And that's just one example of many, many. So this is not about trying to capture the right of women into one target. It is about getting your perspective throughout the framework. And I think anybody that would want to have a successful framework needs to think about how we're going to be engaging women in the implementation. So my advice to you is about full engagement, and then telling us and being part of the discussion on all targets and all aspects. Now, that does not mean that we're removing any specific look at gender issue. That means that it is treated differently. And then when we reflected on what we heard in August and September, we came back to an idea that we had earlier and we have shelved, which is that notion of cross-cutting issues. And we're creating that section need-based, where there is a number of elements. Look at that carefully. And the intent with that section is to give it an overarching power over the target. So that it is not in any way lower or less important than the target. This is something that was in the previous plan as well. So we're looking for your help. We'll be listening to you in how you think this could be helpful, that section, what kind of language we should have in target 21. And Francis and I are not here, we've been asked to speak, but that's not what we want to do. We want to hear from you. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to stay for the whole of your event today, but we're really interested in hearing and in getting the report out. And we're encouraging you to liaise with your country delegation. I know some of them are in the room, and that's going to be a very important channel for your ideas. So I'm completely daring your question and answer. I apologize for that, but we're here to listen.
Thank you very much for your insights and reflections. Moving on to our next part, I would like to hand over to my colleagues, Mary and Bragg, to introduce our panelists.
Of course, I know you will have to leave. Thank you so much for taking the time. But we have some care packages, so we want to kind of do it before we miss you. Very small care packages from us with love. Before you leave. And we also got for everybody else also, and also a little bit of a snack, so you can have a little bit of the coffee. So, but thank you so much for joining us. And this is the idea of bringing everybody together, and it's been wonderful to have this event at the beginning of the session of the first day, to be able to make sure that we're able to present some of the recommendations that are also coming out from other reports and other briefings that the other organizations are also bringing about, of how we can address gender considerations in the global biodiversity framework. So having said that, I will call in the other panel members who are here to share some of their reflections from the work they've been doing. So Tanya from the CBD Secretariat, Catherine from UNEP WCMC, Ben from the OHR office, and Christina from WWF International. And Guadalupe, also we need to find another chair. And almost on the side. While you take that space out of it. Yeah, apologies, just give us 1 minute to arrange because we were asked not to move the chairs. But we will. Okay, sure. I'm going to stand, I think, and I cannot see my notes anymore. No, so thank you so very much. And I think all of you are here, you do know some of them, all of them. And I just wanted to first thank you all for joining this and also kind of reflecting on the different work that has been going on with the post-2020. Because I do know that all of you are engaged in different capacities and different processes of developing the post-2020. So I will leave the introductions. Maybe everyone can do the brief introduction to save time. But first, I would like to also call upon Tanya McGregor. I'm going to give the introduction again. Tanya McGregor from the CBD Secretariat to give a brief introduction. So this is also an event to showcase the report, a publication that the CBD Secretariat launched on good practices. So I will let Tanya take it from there. Quick introduction, and I'll have the questions.
Thanks so much, Tina, and so nice to see all of you here today. Thanks for joining us, and yeah, it's so interesting to be in an in-person event after all this time. So I wanted to, as mentioned by Tina and also by the Executive Secretary, I wanted to bring to your attention a new publication that we just launched last week on International Women's Day. It's a publication by the CBD Secretariat, by the way. So I am the Program Officer with the Secretariat. And this is a result of quite a bit of work that we undertook. And this is, as you can see from the title, it's called Best Practices in Gender and Biodiversity, Pathways for Multiple Benefits. And unfortunately, I couldn't bring documents to share with everyone today just because there is a bit of a COVID restriction on handing out documents, and I didn't have enough room in my bag to bring many extras. But it's available on our website, and so I'd encourage you to take a look at it, and there will be some other hard copies available maybe in a later in-person meeting. But just to give you a brief overview, the purpose of this exercise, to put this together, was really to try and strengthen the evidence base and update the evidence base as well on gender responsive biodiversity policy and programming, recognizing that there is a bit of a gap in information available that speaks to outcomes related both to gender and to biodiversity. So that's part of what we're looking for in showcasing the different examples in this document. And a lot of the other examples that we've drawn on are from, quite some time ago in many cases. So this was also an effort to look for more recent and ongoing initiatives that we could profile. And this is also with the view to support the integration of gender considerations in the implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. So I would invite you again to take a look at it with that perspective in mind. How do we apply the lessons and learning and the different kind of innovative practices in these examples to interventions in support of conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity? So how we put this together was the Secretariat put out a call for contributions on recent and ongoing initiatives, and those that included innovative and transformative actions. And we also undertook some additional research to identify different case studies. So the call for contributions that we put out yielded about 70 case studies from 30 different contributions. So we weren't able to include all of the different examples that we received, but we did attempt to include as many as possible that fit the criteria that were established. So the document includes 10 case studies that are detailed perspective on different steps that we're taking on different types of programming and policy initiatives related to biodiversity around the world. And then there's also 27 kind of short snapshot examples that give a taste of what's happening in different regions and different countries. So just also to heighten your interest in taking a closer look at this, the criteria that we use for these best practices included things that such as having impacts, examples or initiatives that had impacts for biodiversity, as well as for gender equality and women's empowerment. Again, recognizing that often case studies will report on one aspect, such as biodiversity, and maybe make some reference to women's involvement, but wouldn't necessarily talk that much about gender equality. So this is an attempt to really try and capture those different elements in the case studies that are presented. And also we're looking at initiatives that were intended to transform or take a transformative approach to gender relations through addressing biodiversity, as well as supporting the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and demonstrating synergies with the different Rio conventions, and also those that included innovative technologies and approaches that looked at or involved financing from non-standard or new partners, and also initiatives that were undertaken at scales larger than the community level. So there's a number of key findings that are highlighted in the document, as well as some key messages. I'm not sure if I have time to go into too much of them because I don't want to, I know we only have an hour, but just to kind of highlight a little bit, some of the key messages that are included in the publication are things like the value of women's collective action, how women's organizations and networks can really help things like engaging women to develop their technical skills in different biodiversity related sectors, foster leadership, also spotlighting the importance of equitable access to land and natural resources, and things that we know already and are very familiar with, the need for good data that talks about that includes a focus on women's roles and the large extent of their roles and responsibilities in regards to biodiversity, and also kind of really noting things like the opportunities to build on small scale examples or small scale initiatives that have been successful in trying to replicate those successes and build on that learning and those investments to undertake initiatives at larger scales. So maybe I'll leave it there for now, but just invite you once again to take a look at this and please keep it in mind when you are supporting different interventions for the implementation of the framework of the post-2020 Gender Plan of Action under the CBD, and also just in terms of sharing it with your networks and trying to spread the learning that is captured here. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Yeah, it is a great publication. It comes really on time to really showcase that what we're really asking for is not something that is not being documented, but there are cases already showing that contributions that women have been doing in different, I would say, agenda items, not only just conservation, but different aspects. So having said that, tone of saying that, there are these good practices that can be documented, are being documented, but also need more documentation. So this is a great start to that. Going forward, the other panelists, I wanted to kind of reflect on some of the key recommendations or reflections that they have done in the different processes, starting with I will start with Ben. Sorry, I'm losing track of my notes here. So from the HR office, there was a key brief that was taken out just a couple of months ago, very recently, and it really addressed this issue. The brief was on human rights, the environment, and gender equality. And they had some very good recommendations, very strong bullet points, one paragraph. And I think it's really very related to the work that we are doing here. So I would want Ben to reflect on that and see what were the key recommendation or something that you feel that could support or could be more emphasized to make the GBF more gender responsive?
Thank you. Okay, very good. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Geneva. I'm Ben Schachter with the UN Human Rights Office. I coordinate our work on environment and climate change, and this is where we are based and where the Human Rights Council is based. And so the first thing I want to do is flag that between the last meeting of the CBD and this one, the Human Rights Council passed a landmark resolution recognizing the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a human right for all. And I think what we really want to see happening here is that there is communication across these incredibly important areas of work of the United Nations, the Human Rights Council, the mechanisms, and the negotiations here on the Convention on Biological Diversity. And the framework under which all of that can happen is indeed the right to a healthy environment. So women's rights are human rights. The Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women articulates these rights, articulates a roadmap for gender equality. And so when we talk about human rights in the context of the post-2020 biodiversity framework, we're also really talking about gender equality and gender responsive action as well. So I want to highlight that you know, there's language right now on rights-based approaches in the global biodiversity framework. That's important language. That language can be strengthened. There's language on gender and gender responsive approaches. Really important, can be strengthened. Our office certainly would support additional and stronger language and or a standalone target on gender equality. And those are all important things to think about. And to inform the way that we think about these things and the way that these negotiations and processes take place, and more broadly, the way that biodiversity action takes place, we've issued a set of key messages in normative guidance, which Tina asked me to speak a bit about here today. So I'm getting there, and I'll try to go through quickly now. So first, one I want to highlight is the key messages on human rights, the environment, and gender equality. This is a joint product between the UN Human Rights Office, UNEP, and UN Women. Happy to share more information on that. I, as well, do not have copies to hand out, I'm afraid. It has 17 key messages, and I think I could briefly go through some of those, or just through the sort of headline message, and leave you there with that, and my willingness to continue the conversation after we hear from all of the excellent members of this panel. So the first one is to respect, protect, and fulfill the rights of women, men, girls, boys, and persons with diverse gender identities to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. The next one, take urgent, ambitious, gender-responsive action to combat environmental crises. Prevent gender-based discrimination in environmental matters. Understand and address the effects of multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. Stop harmful gender-based stereotypes related to the environment. Ensure women's equal, free, active, meaningful, and informed participation in decision-making processes related to the environment. Respect, protect, and fulfill the rights of women environmental human rights defenders. Ensure gender-responsive access to justice and accountability for environmental harms. Take a gender-responsive approach to ensuring the right to health, including sexual and reproductive health and rights in environmental action. Address gender-based violence in the context of environmental crises. Ensure a just and gender-responsive transition to a green economy. Ensure equal ownership of access to and benefits from resources for women and persons with diverse gender identities. ensure the right of all persons, including women, to enjoy the benefit of science and its applications, protect against the gendered impact of business-related human rights harms, and ensure the rights of all persons, including women and persons with diverse gender identities, to education with respect for the natural environment, collect and use gender disaggregated data to inform environmental action and policies, cooperate internationally to enhance gender responsive environmental action and policies. So these are all the headline messages derived from an application of human rights law to the context of environmental action. And we've done the same thing with human rights and biodiversity. There's gender content and analysis here too, but I will skip that in the interest of time, and really looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. My apologies, you had to kind of rush and make this really short, but these are really very key elements that are coming up and very relevant to the work of the GBF, especially when we are looking at this. So we are asking that Target 21 as it exists is not enough. It's really not enough to be ensuring that women's rights are absolutely adhered to in its right for a safe, clean, healthy environment. Just following that, and these are really key documents, they're all online. Please have a look. It would be a great guidance to see how we could really work towards making the post-2020 more gender responsive. It's not there yet, but maybe more. So having said that, setting that to the stage, is Catherine from UNEP WCMC, who will also be talking from UN Women. About the informal meeting that they had organized with some of the party delegations in November last year. So just a reflection from that meeting.
Thank you, Tina. Yes, UNEP WCMC and UN Women last year organized informal dialogue with parties to the CBD. They participated in their personal capacity under the Chatham House rule. It was an informal dialogue to explore opportunities for enhancing the integration of a gender perspective across the post-2020 framework as a package. The purpose of the meeting was to ensure that this dialogue would enable to identify opportunities to ensure that key gender priorities. These are ensuring equal opportunities for decision-making and participation, equal access to land and resources, and equal benefits derived from the use of biodiversity. And there were around 20 participants from 14 parties. The co-chairs of the open-ended working group attended as well. Colleagues from the city secretariats, the SAFSA chair, and some IUCN colleagues that they were providing some information related to indicators and the monitoring framework. Again, I can't go into details of the key recommendations, but based on the discussions, we produce a 4-page document with the key recommendations that emerged from these discussions. And basically, the document provides information about opportunities for integrating gender in the post-2020 framework, the planning, monitoring, and reporting processes, and enabling mechanisms. And I can provide more detail, but this document is available in the virtual display on the CBD website if you want to have a look. It also includes a link to the summary of discussions from the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was really very brief, but that 4-pager has a lot of important elements that could really also be used. If I'm not mistaken, also a brief discussion on the possibility whether or not to also have a target on gender equalities is one of the things. So please take a look at it. I'm sorry, I have to say it. I read it. These are the small pointers saying that these are things that are being discussed. It's not like we are saying it. There are being discussions. It's not something new. It's great to see that it was part of the discussion, and we really would like for the same parties in their now capacities to really, again, reflect on that. Moving forward, I will give the floor to Christina from WWF International to just reflect on the work that WWF has now been working on. They had a position paper and also their work on advancing gender.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, WWF supports the strengthening of gender equality in the GDF and including supporting a gender standalone target. But we would like to acknowledge the collaboration with the Women for Biodiversity Network, their extended network and local voices that help us really deepen the understanding of the nexus between women, gender, and biodiversity. And also understand what it takes to actually effectively implementing gender equality in the global biodiversity framework. We underscore the importance of this kind of collaboration, and I think the first speaker, Tanya, also spoke to that because collaboration are a prerequisite to effective collective action. If we want to halt and reverse biodiversity loss, we want to be nature positive by 2030. We also need to be gender positive by 2030 or before, meaning putting gender equality rights at the center, at the core of the implementation of the global biodiversity framework. What does it take? Well, of course, a standalone target would secure that implementation and accountability, but we also need effective participation, equitable participation of women as partners in policy and decision-making related to biodiversity. We need a strong gender plan of action, which is implemented, which is measured and reported. We need indicators, and we need to continue the documentation as the Secretariat publication shows, continuing the documentation of gender examples of women's voices, bringing out of the invisibility of women's roles, knowledge, practices, innovation so far, and bringing them to light. I'll stop here, Tina, and the choir. Thank you.
My apologies, don't scream to kind of go around. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing also that perspective. So there is also really an understanding that there's also growing recognition and also acknowledgement by organizations that movement seems to be growing, and we really want to encourage others to also be doing the same. So without having much time, we have, at least for this moderated session, our last speaker, but please to state you have like 5 more minutes, because we also have the visual display, visual graphic that we want to share, but Anna will do after the last to show what messages we were able to gather from here. First, my very dear colleague, sister, this discussion would not have been complete without also really making sure that we hear the critiques from our Indigenous women. So I'm really, really happy to have Yashinat here. She's been also the CBD for a very long time. We go back a long way, younger version of ourselves, but so happy to also here give them the space of saying what are their aspirations, what would be required for the post 2020 to also take into considerations Indigenous women's rights in the GDF. I'm so sorry for back and forth.
Muchas gracias. Voy a hablar en español. Thank you very much. I will be speaking Spanish for a balance. Okay, muy bien. Pues en primer lugar, un saludo del Foro Internacional Indígena sobre Biodiversidad. Y bueno, sabemos que las mujeres y los pueblos indígenas contribuimos enormemente al cumplimiento de los 3 objetivos del convenio. Pero aporte no se ha visto reflejado en políticas, incluso, bueno, de hecho, en muchos ámbitos nacionales, locales, en el acceso a tierras y en derechos. Y bueno, por eso es necesario este plan de acción de género, el plan de acción también con indicadores específicos para las hermanas mujeres indígenas que, bueno, tienen un rol crucial en sus comunidades, o tenemos ese rol crucial en las comunidades, desde como las guardianas de las semillas hasta las guardianas y transmisoras de los saberes o de la medicina tradicional. Estas mujeres que, bueno, estamos como mujeres indígenas intentando sanar la biodiversidad, sanar a la madre tierra, pero también estamos intentando sanar esas relaciones intergeneracionales y esas relaciones entre los géneros. Y como ya mencionaron, pues hay una gran diversidad de formas de autoidentificarse, autoadscribirse. Algo también muy importante es que todos los documentos que se han trabajado paralelamente a este esfuerzo de construcción del marco global post-2020 son muy claros y tienen gran coincidencia en la necesidad de metas y de objetivos robustos con temas transversales. Entre ellos, el enfoque en la perspectiva de género. Es por eso que necesitamos trabajar con las dos mitades del mundo o con todas las partes que integran este mundo. Algo también muy importante es que el mensaje y toda la información del convenio llegue a las comunidades, a las más alejadas. Y aquí mi invitación a todos ustedes, organizaciones civiles, representantes de las partes. Es importante que las mujeres nos reconozcamos como parte de esos esfuerzos y nos identifiquemos y redoblemos esos esfuerzos, pero lo vamos a lograr si contamos con esa información, con esa creación de capacidades que nos permite interactuar con las demás partes del mundo. Y finalmente queremos invitar a que apoyemos el plan de acción de género con, como dijo mi amiga Claire, con metas medibles, evaluables, y con todo lo necesario para su implementación. La capacidad es muy importante, pero también los recursos financieros y la voluntad de los gobiernos nacionales. Yo aquí termino mi mensaje y les agradezco infinitamente por escucharme. Thank you so much, Dortina.
Wow, this is a very, my apologies, a very informal session. We want it to be like that, more creative and not making sure that people are getting bored. Yeah, having said that, by the time we also have Anna, who maybe needs maybe 1 or 2 minutes to just project. Like 2 or 3 minutes, we also wanted to keep the floor open of also hearing what from the audience, of you asking for the panelists, also asking what you would want to see for gender equality. I only see hands raising. So first, I also have Gazella, please come here. Gazella, I'm so sorry for mispronouncing it. And also she has a message for all of us. It's the first time at the CBD. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing it, so I'll just kind of nod my head and agree with you for everything. And also after Viviana. So 2 messages we'll take.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Yo soy Gisela, campesina, productora de alimentos de pequeña escala en México. Una de las principales preocupaciones que tenemos en los pequeños productores de alimentos a nivel global es cómo el sistema alimentario está siendo cooptado por las grandes empresas, y para nosotras, las mujeres rurales, el tema de la biodiversidad está totalmente ligada a la alimentación, a la salud, a la cosmovisión. Es importante recalcar que no se trata solamente de un asunto de conservación, se trata de un asunto de preservar la vida de nuestros ancestros, la vida nuestra, pero también la vida de nuestras comunidades. El tema de género sin duda es un elemento importante porque nos permite reconocer cuáles son esas brechas que enfrentamos las mujeres y que tiene mucho que ver en el caso de la biodiversidad con el acceso a la tierra, acceso a las semillas, acceso a las propias formas de organización, pero acceso también a participación en estos espacios que todavía es muy complejo para las mujeres rurales. Agradezco todos los esfuerzos que se están haciendo de diversas compañeras y compañeros en todo el mundo, pero creo que todavía las mujeres rurales, campesinas e indígenas tenemos mucho camino por avanzar. Muchas gracias.
Giselle, thank you very much. I totally agree. Well, Brianna, come on the floor. These are all, yes, my wonderful friend, please.
Thank you, Vivian Solis for the International Collective of Fisher Folks. I think one of the strengths of women is their diversity, and in that we need to also remember and mention the women that are not present. Now that the countries are talking about the sea, about the ocean with great interest, the great absence, the great gap is you see fisher women, fisher mollusk gatherers recognized as a different type of knowledge that could be present and discussing the issues of policy with us. So I think we should remember this. We should see and look for this target 22 to make sure that that diversity of women that still are not recognized by governments when they are discussing a key issue are not present and with us with their knowledge and sharing their ideas.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. And now, just to kind of reflect on what we really shared, I have Anna here. Please do. I mean, I want to acknowledge it. Big thanks for her. I don't know how she did this. It would have taken me ages to look for a GIF or something to do this together.
Hi everybody. So it was quite challenging for 1 hour time to synchronize all that, but I tried to translate visually what the other people are translating into French and Spanish. Of course, we will complete this drawing and I think you will recite it. So I try to represent the main theme. Here's equal access to resources and benefits, equal opportunities. The vision is about the women are strong change agents. And then very quickly, we speak about the visibility of our initiatives, the alignment and coordination of the action, how to get some indicators to act local and to not forget the ocean.
A big applause, please. Not doing any reports from now on. I'm going to be going with these graphics. I think because they are so precise in really getting the key messages. So I really hope that these will help all of us getting some of these messages. We will also try, if you have your mailing list, if you haven't, please do, because then I can make sure that we have all these documentations that we can send to you as a package, but also this graphics. If we have the time, we will try to have it translated also in French and Spanish for wider circulation. But at least just to say that these are the key things, and these are the elements that are missing in the GDF. I don't know, like there's amazing, important things. So I speak very fast. I can hear my clock going very fast in interpretation. So, so I want to end this with thank you very, very much for taking the time out and missing your lunch and being here. So big applause for all my panel speakers here. A big applause to Anna for doing this wonderful job. Thank you so much. It's such a limited time. Is it a day or like 1 hour? And also big thanks to this team without which we would not have been able to accommodate interpretation in Geneva. That's Claude and all his friends. I would like to have an introduction of everybody, please.
Hello, everyone. Again, I am Claude Genet, an interpreter based here in Geneva, and I'll press forward quickly to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Thank you. My name is Pam. I'm also an interpreter here, and I love the linguistic diversity. So thank you for making it possible. Perdón. También soy intérprete basada en Ginebra. Mi nombre es Pamela y feliz de que todos tengan la oportunidad de hablar español y francés.
And I think my other colleagues really there. We cannot forget them. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get these messages across. So please give me 1 minute. Walking across this, I'm going to wait here.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Chloé, je suis interprète. Hello, I'm Chloe. Thank you for listening to us today.
Please come here. Here, like a beautiful self, yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm the interpreter, French interpreter. Happy to be helping you today. Chloe.
Hi, I'm the other French interpreter. I will be playing so to help you understand each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everybody. And also I see not only for the observers as we are called, but also thank you so much for some of the party members who are here. I'm really counting on you guys. Like I said, it's a party led. We have all the information. We can equip you. Please do not, let's not wait for another 30 years for gender equality to come along. This is going to be a really sad state. Having said that, you will see me and all these colleagues here for the 2.5 weeks. Please reach out to us. And don't avoid us. But before you go, so thank you once again very, very much. And please take your care packages when you get out with your eBay. Thank you very, very much. The end.